All right, well, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We're expecting at least one more commission member. And have a roll call.
Cynthia Hoyle.
Here.
Annie Adams. Kara Dudek. Here. Audrey Ishii. Here. Susan Jones.
Here.
Jeff Marino.
Here.
Craig Schonkweiler.
Here.
Lily Wilcock.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Now we need approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of the minutes from previous meeting. Does anyone have any changes, additions, etc.? Okay, then we can entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, now we have public input. Do we have any public input? We do. Oops.
Charlie Smythe, various hats that I wear, but I've pestered you. It should be.
Yeah.
I've pestered you plenty about the bike master plan. Kevin and staff have done a really nice job of incorporating many of the suggestions that were offered last February, and I really appreciate that. There are two issues there that I still feel, and I shared those with you earlier today via email, that I think could be strengthened a bit in the document. One is the idea of residential speed limits at 25 miles an hour. It's sort of buried in the text of trying reduced residential speed limits. And it's part of the Vision Zero concept. I think that should just be mentioned a little more prominently in the document. Other communities are doing 20, like Seattle, and other communities are doing 25. We have a number of villages in the area that do 25 miles an hour. And so it would be nice, and we do 25 miles in the University District. Surviving a crash at 25 miles an hour when you're hit by a vehicle as a pedestrian or a bicyclist is a lot. The odds are better than at 30. The odds would be even better at 20, but I don't think I want to push my luck at that lower speed yet. It's appropriate for school zones. And that's why it is the school zone speed limit. The other issue is a little more troubling. One of my criticisms of the plan originally and that of other people that I talked to around the country was that it wasn't quite ambitious enough in terms of mode share, bicycle mode share. And I had pushed for a more substantial jump, okay, like go from 9 to 18 or something like that, 9% now to 18 in 10 years. And I still think that's a pretty good goal. And the plan had talked about 3% over 5 years, and now it talks about 5% over 10 years. So the revision has actually brought that goal down. So at least do what the plan originally had in it, if not more. Find something a little more ambitious than 5% or adding another 5%. Maybe my 9% or 10% is a little bit too ambitious, but this is a plan that's going to sit out there for 10 years, roughly. That's how long the last one has lasted, more or less. So it should be ambitious. So those are the two things I would encourage you to consider. But I really appreciate the work that's been done and the ideas that were incorporated as best they could be in different places. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay. All right, we will go on to new business, bicycle master plan update. Kevin Garcia.
So I'm excited to say we are back with the Urbana Bicycle Master Plan, the 2016 Urbana Bicycle Master Plan. So I'm going to try and keep my comments brief. They'll track pretty closely with the memo that was sent out to you a couple weeks ago. I hope everybody had a chance to review the memo thoroughly, and as well as the draft changes that were attached. So what we're doing is we ultimately, we're requesting that the Plan Commission and the City Council adopt the 2016 Urbana Bicycle Master Plan as an amendment to our 2005 comprehensive plan for the city. But prior to bringing the updated draft of the plan to the Plan Commission, we wanted comments from and an endorsement from BPAC on the updates that we've made. As I mentioned, attached to your memo is a draft of the most recent revisions to the executive summary and to the draft plan. Just for a little bit of background on the plan, this 2016 version will replace the 2008 Urbana Bicycle Master Plan, which was adopted back in April 2008. And this plan was prepared by the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission, and the planning process was guided by a steering committee over the course of a couple of years, and that steering committee included members of BPAC, the Park District, the School District, the University of Illinois, the Champaign-Urbana MTD, and the Public Health District, Champaign County Bikes, and city staff. The RPC brought this plan to a joint meeting back in December of 2015, and then the plan was released for public comment, which ended at the end of February, I believe, of this year. It's also been discussed a couple of times at the Traffic Commission, and it was discussed in January and February at BPAC. Since we received public comments, staff and the RPC went back and revised. Well, we drafted an executive summary, which was not included in the original draft, and we also revised sections of the plan to address the comments that we had. We reconvened the steering committee last month to review the proposed edits, and we came out of that meeting with consensus as to the edits to the plan. So now we're requesting of BPAC that you provide us with any comments and any proposed changes to the draft plan tonight, and then we would ask you to approve the plan, and then at that point the master plan would be brought to the Plan Commission on December 8th, and then if the Plan Commission recommends approval, we will bring it to the Committee of the Whole on December 12th, and then hopefully to the City Council for ultimate approval on December 19th of this year, making it the 2016 Urbana Bicycle Master Plan. If you'd like, I could briefly run through the changes. They are outlined on the third page of your memo, and then, as I mentioned a couple times, also all of the edits are in your memo. So if you like, I can run through the things or through the edits briefly, or we can just open it up to comments. So it's up to you.
What would the commissioners like? Do you want to have him review them, or would you?
If you, yeah. So if you turn to the third page, does everybody have their memos? Okay, I can pull it up here so we can sort of just go over that. Oh, let's see. I believe it's in here. Summary of edits. Good.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So briefly, with the executive summary, this may have been the first time that BPAC saw the executive summary. There's a previous draft version, and then we updated it with some edits that you see outlined here. The edits were basically done to be more direct with the language, to be more action oriented. And then you'll see we updated some sections of that. There's a little in there that seemed too technical for an executive summary, like discussion of the bicycle level of service. and there were some extraneous pieces in the goals section. So we really stripped it down, wanted to make it more action oriented. And I can also pull up these sections if anybody wants to go over specifics on them. A couple of these chapters we really didn't do much to, but they were still incorporated. Like you'll see chapter 4, just some minor text edits. Chapter 1, we added all of the relevant council and mayor goals to table 1. Previously, all that was in there was the goal to update the bicycle master plan, but there were some more that were appropriate to add in there related to bicycling. Chapter 5 is the section that talks about facilities. So we just went and made some edits based on, or just mostly pretty minor edits based on the NACTO and ASHTO guides. Let's see. And just some other minor edits. And then in Chapter 9, I'd say one of the major things, which really isn't, it wasn't terribly major, but we wanted to reorder the goals to put safety first, because I think that is important, is to have safety first, and then putting the visionary concepts at the end, also putting the implementation at the end, and changing all dates. 2015 to 2016, and so forth. And then in Chapter 10, we just wanted to clarify the description of bicycle level of service and add, there's sort of an emerging alternative to bicycle level of service called level of traffic stress, and we just wanted to acknowledge that is something that we might want to look at in future plans. I think on a staff level, probably BPAC is also aware of that measure, but we just wanted to be explicit and put it in there. So that's really what I have for you, and we can discuss from here.
Hey, I've got a quick question.
Yes.
One thing that I think Charlie sent out to a lot of us was he mentioned University Avenue problem intersections that are identified in the CCB bike map. And in Chapter 9, it says we added problem intersections as identified in the CU bike map. And
Yes.
I was wondering, does that include the University Avenue intersections?
That is a good question. I can pull that up for you. I don't recall off the top of my head. Was that in?
I'm only bringing it up as a
Chapter
concern, as that has been identified as a very dangerous corridor in several different areas, and we've had problems this year.
Right. So I believe that if they're identified in the bike map, I think they made their way into the plan. But let me take a look. There we go. Okay, so I'm seeing there's one at Main Street and University, but I don't believe that's where you're talking about, or Main Street and Behringer Circle and University. And I'm not seeing anything else on University. Okay, so there aren't any on the map.
I'm seeing that too.
Yes. But I would agree with you that a lot of those intersections along University are tricky.
We do have the safety study that is being done for the university corridor that I think will address those locations. And I think most of our crashes on University have been pedestrian crashes, not bicycle crashes. But nevertheless, we know that we have a serious problem along there. So we have that information and that study coming, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to provide input on that.
Awesome, thank you.
What was Vision Zero added explicitly to this version of the plan, and in conjunction with that, maybe you can turn to it.
It was. So we added it to the chapter 9 to this chapter on goals and objectives. So we're calling it this last section called visionary concepts, and I'll just point out we converted this from a PDF to a Word document so that we could track changes. So that's why there's some weird formatting, but don't worry. The final plan will look good. And then in addition to this section that we added to Chapter 9, we call it out in the executive summary as well, I believe. And I can pull that up too.
Has this been incorporated in other plans for Urbana as well? Do you know the
Not
Vision
yet.
Zero, that this is the
Yeah,
first one?
this would be the first one. And I could take track changes off if that makes reading these easier. There we go.
Do you know where would Councilman Smythe's suggestion on speed limits be incorporated if it was incorporated in here?
So we were thinking that could go into the executive summary for one, and then I think we were talking about throwing it in or putting it into Chapter 4, which, let's see, does that make sense? No. I have it in my notes from our meeting, and that's a discussion that we've had. We just have not had the time yet to incorporate that into the plan, but certainly something that we'd like to do because we have discussed it a couple times.
And are there other commissions that are interested in that at all, or in the idea of going to a 25 mile per hour residential?
I'm not sure that we brought it up with any other commissions.
I
Craig, did
had thought that that it was mentioned in the body of the document. At least it might not have been 25 mile an hour specifically, but it was. Yes, and it was about
right.
investigation into
Yeah.
neighborhood speed reduction or residential speed reduction program.
That's correct. It's up. It's right up here.
Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah. Because we talk about two things. One is a neighborhood traffic calming study,
Right.
potential
Yeah.
for that, and then speed. I guess I could just Control F and look for it. It's got to be in here. Here we go. Page says 167. So have city staff explore the development of a traffic calming policy and neighborhood speed reduction policy to reduce vehicle speed. I think we wanted to be explicit about saying vehicle speed and not just saying speed limits, because I think we all know that speed limits does not equal speed.
Well, we could add and consider residential speed limit of 25 miles an hour.
And Kevin, wasn't there another section where we did talk
I
about
thought we had it in
lobbying-
there.
lobbying for a blanket or lobbying legislators also?
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, Mr. Smythe's comments were in there. It just didn't specifically say 25. And I think when the steering committee talked about it, it was, you know, we could add 25. I think the thought was that a specific speed limit should be studied further and not left to just 25. It could be even some areas where it's even less, you know,
Yeah,
potentially.
which is why we said consider, it would be
Right.
for consideration. Because lowering speed limit does not change driving behavior. You have to redesign streets. And if the street design is 40 miles an hour, a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit will not change driver behavior.
And those, for those that don't know, the state law in Illinois says 30 mile an hour in urban areas unless it's marked
Posted.
otherwise. So you can't actually do a blanket reduction currently under state law. That has to be lobbied with the legislature to change that. So one approach we were looking at was, well, maybe we don't do that, but we could do neighborhood by neighborhood with a study type of approach and include perhaps a traffic calming policy with that. That was something that we were hoping to come out of this document that would kind of push things forward.
So you couldn't have a sign at the city limit that says residential street limit 25 miles per hour unless otherwise posted.
Not
Correct.
currently.
Okay.
It seems like I've seen that in some of the other small towns around.
What, I had done some research on this, and I think probably sometimes what happens is Urbana's caught in the trap of having professional staff that knows about the regulations, and some other communities don't. That's just what happens. Like the 25 mile an hour in the university district, now that was done, you know, under sort of the gauge of the CATS study is what happened, the Campus Area Transportation Study. And that was used to lower the speed limits within that certain zone.
But it's posted on the streets.
Each
Because the
street.
university doesn't own very many of the streets, and my understanding is the cities did not agree to lower it to 25 on many of the streets that they have ownership of.
Well, actually, they're currently now every city street in Urbana that it's all 25 within the zone.
It is.
Yeah, because we just last year changed Springfield and Green
Okay.
from Wright to Lincoln.
Okay.
So now they're all 25 now that Urbana has jurisdiction over
Okay.
within that zone.
And green as well?
Yeah, Green was changed last year too.
Okay. Well, people are not driving that when they have the opportunity.
Right. Well, and I think that's a prime point. You know, we found that too on the engineering side, is that, you know, the character of the road, so to speak, drives the speed limit, so to speak.
Yeah, there are a lot of studies, and one of the first study I did out of graduate school when I worked for a city was to look at the before and after of the 85th percentile speed after changes in speed limit, and we found that it did not change the speed, and in fact, in several cases, the 85th percentile speed went up after they lowered the speed limit, which was interesting. So the roadway design definitely has to be for a lower speed in order to that be effective.
Well, within residential areas, there could be some traction to do so.
Right.
Most residential areas, there's really not any reason to be driving
No,
very fast, right?
absolutely not.
So, I think that was a little bit of the movement
Mm-hmm.
with what Mr. Smythe was wanting. At least there's some teeth in here to
Mm-hmm.
kind of move things towards that. I think, it wouldn't be a problem to add consideration of 25 or some lesser
I
speed
think it
limit.
would be good to have some kind of
We could
goal.
do
I
that.
think we know that 20 is unlikely to fly, so
Right.
25 though, because of the university district. And I mean,
Mhm.
Pennsylvania is not at all designed for a slow speed, but it's
Right.
posted 25, and
Right.
it's hard to remember that because it's so wide open.
So we
It
could make a motion for a recommendation to add that in. Does someone want to make that motion?
I'll make
Ah.
that motion.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'll second the motion that 25 miles per hour for residential areas be added as a consideration to the plan.
Is there any discussion? Okay, those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we can add that in.
Just to get some clarification, I think this is a 300-page document. Is there guidance as to where we should add this in?
I think
Are we
where you
talking
showed us
right here?
on,
Okay.
under, yeah, where you had the policy to reduce vehicle speed and consider residential street speed limit of 25 miles per hour.
Maybe desired speed, not speed limit.
I think we could say speed limit. I mean, it's in combination with, taking a look at neighborhood speed reduction policy. And so it would be a package deal. I don't see it being a blanket deal based on that.
Disappeared.
And there are some residential streets that people drive much too fast on.
Sure.
Okay. Other changes, thoughts?
Do we want to talk about the mode share question then too? Go to that section? The mode share, bike mode
Oh,
share?
yeah, I can do that.
As we're getting ready to have that discussion, I would like for you to enlighten us as to whether or not we achieved the goal that we set in the last bicycle master plan as a point of reference for this discussion.
That's a good question. I would need to pull that plan up and see what that goal said. Let's see.
And for reference, we're currently at 9%, is that correct, for bike mode share?
That's correct.
Okay.
And did we, just to enlighten me, since I've only been here 2.5 years, did we have, prior to the pedestrian and bicycle survey that the RPC did this past year or so, did we have one before that?
A goal? I mean,
Did-
the previous plan
did-
had a goal, but
No, did the RPC do a pedestrian and bicycle survey
no,
prior
we were
to?
using the U.S. Census data, the American Community Survey data.
Yeah. that's
So,
Mhm.
so I guess from a statistical standpoint, I don't know if it would be valid to really compare what we determined locally at 9% and compare that to the census data, because this 9% is for all trips, and the census data is just for commute trips, so it would be
Work
comparing.
commute trips, yes.
But that said, I guess I'll argue against myself here. If we had a goal in the previous plan, I'm sure, and we used census data, I'm sure we were comparing census data to census data. So, where can I find that? Let's see if I know how to navigate our website. Plans. On the RPC
No,
website.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's on RPCs.
Well, what I have is that in 2000, we had a bicycle mode share of 2.5%. And in 2010, we had 3.6, and in 2011, we had 3.5 based on the American Community Survey data. And then there was a recent study that came out, I was just looking for that as well, that had our even more recent American Community Survey data. And I just looked at that yesterday, if I could remember what the numbers were. Because it was higher than that in the most recent.
Okay.
Because we were in the top 10 in communities in the country for both pedestrian and bicycle mode share of all cities in the community. In the country. Let's see.
6.
Bicycle mode share.
Okay, this says increase bicycle mode share in Urbana for all trip purposes by 50% in the next 5 years. With a footnote.
Okay.
Based on the 2002 travel survey completed by CUAPS. All right.
And I can tell you what our most recent count was. Let me pull that here. All right. So this is for the Champaign-Urbana metro area. And so that is going to be different than for Urbana itself. That was 2.7%, which still put us in the top 10. Yeah, see, for Urbana, it showed in 2011 that we had 3.5%, so ours is obviously higher than 2.7.
Okay.
So the issue that what I'm hearing is that we had a 50% increase in 5 years, which I do not believe we achieved based on what I'm seeing, because we passed the plan
2008.
2008.
Yeah. I think it was April.
And now we're saying a 50% increase over 10 years in the current edition of the plan. So what are thoughts of the commission?
I guess just for reference, the initial goal that was in the draft plan was from 9 to 12%, so that would be a 33% increase over 5 years.
Over 5 or 10?
Over 5.
Okay. So then what we said was a 50% increase. So now I'm confused. So I thought that the new plan
So-
suggested a 50% increase.
It did, but over 10 years.
Okay, I see what you're saying. All right.
Kevin, what did you say about it went from 9 to 12? Was that the mode share?
So the initial so this goal right here, or this objective,
Oh, I see, okay.
was initially said by 3 percentage points over those 5 years. So that would be equal to going from 9 to 12. So that would be 33%.
Well, this was this particular topic I think was the one we spent the most time discussing at the steering committee meeting.
It was.
And I know it's for all trips. And so it would be interesting to know what other communities have. I know that in terms of commute mode share, the highest in the country is 4.5% in Eugene, Springfield, Oregon. Boulder is 4.2. That's clearly lower than all trips would be. But I want to be ambitious, and I think a 14% mode share is reasonably ambitious compared with the communities that are bicycle-friendly communities now. But I do not remember what the higher-ranked communities had in terms of mode share for all trips. Does anyone remember?
I'm sort of wondering why it's like all that critical.
I mean, yeah, there's no funding tied to whether you meet the
Right.
goal or not. I guess politically you could make the argument, hey, we're not reaching our goals, so we need to devote more resources towards it.
I mean, we don't need to make it too easy, but since we didn't make it last time, you know, they both seem ambitious. I do kind of like the idea of go back to the old one because it was more ambitious and it's more short term. Like, let's go, let's do this now.
That's a good point, because then it can be revisited too.
Right.
I mean, I wonder if the League of American Bicyclists has a recommended amount, or if there's a.
It's going to be so different for different. I think for our community, either of those are appropriate and ambitious.
Well, I like the shorter term because it gives us a reason to check in and see where we're at, rather than going for 10-year plan.
Yeah.
I like the idea of trying to figure out how to set some goals for ourselves so we do stay on track, and whether it's 5 years or 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, or whatever that is, that we feel like we feel like we have some benchmark to hit instead of just like, oh, another 10 years happened, and I actually really I think that's really very smart. If there's a
Does CCRPC do annual mode counts? How often do they do the counts?
Well, I mean, the last one was done with that survey, which was specifically done for this plan.
So 2014,
Yeah.
and they
Something
have
like
no
that.
plans. They have no plans to try to do another one.
Probably until, well, I mean, obviously they need funding to do so. But they would do one the next time we would do.
They do annual traffic counts for vehicles.
They do.
Yeah.
They do, but, as we've noticed before, getting the data for bicycles is a little different. Now, they do have that new app, and maybe that can tell us a little bit more, but is it accurate enough to say, that the mode share is increased? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at data online, and it's not clear. Davis, California, which I believe is the top-rated community in the U.S., it has a low of 15% and a high of 22%, and I don't know what that means about low and high. But so I wonder if we want to. I wonder if we want to say in 5 years we would like to be at, this
15.
percent, and in 10 years at this percent. I don't think, going to 14 in 5 years, I think is not achievable.
I was at the GIS day conference today on campus, and Matt Yoder mentioned that there were 400 log trips on the Bike Moves app and 150 active users. So I think that that currently it's not a viable way of measuring such a wide, an important number too, but such a large area, and trying to get that. And that's across 400 trips across the area. So.
Yeah, and I don't think the purpose of that app is really to judge mode share. It's more to look at route planning.
Yeah.
Well, the original 5-year goal was 12%, 9 to 12.
And though, if we make a 5-year goal and there's no plan to actually survey it, how would we know whether we achieved it or not?
Well, I think that there is the intention to update our data, and I don't know what the specific plans are for doing that, but we do have the capability of counting using some of the technology. I mean, they have counters. The QS has counters now, so we do have the capability of doing that.
And we do have this strategy here. Not that we say how to fund it, but we that was one of the edits that we made, was just to say conduct these. Well, I guess that was already sort of in there, but I think we wanted to be more explicit. Say conduct these surveys periodically. We added the RPC as the entity that should be conducting these surveys.
So do we want to change it to say we want to go from 9 to 12% by 2021?
So you're talking 3 percentage points in 5 years is what you're looking for, which is what it
What we
said
had
before, or
previously.
6% in 10 years,
At the same
which would mean it'd go from 9 to 15, or by 2026, or 9 to 12 in 2021.
The other option that occurred to me is we could set a moderate and an aspirational goal, and set a higher goal for our aspirational goal. I mean, that's an option for us, but I think really when I look at this, more important than setting a high goal is our specific steps to achieve it.
Right.
I wonder if we could say, when conducting periodic surveys, to track mode share and obstacles to increasing it. Because if we're not making that mode share, why?
I do think that would be something that I think this document does go in depth in how to do it in other areas.
I think that's a major
Yeah.
goal of the entire document, right? Is to increase mode share. So this is just where the rubber hits the road. Have we succeeded in doing that?
Although it's kind of works. I mean, you can have a goal for 2026, but really the life of the plan, hopefully we'll be back here before 10 years.
Right.
So we ought to have a goal that is within the life of the plan. So something more that we are checking our progress, not 10 years from now, maybe it's 5 years from now.
I think 5 years is better.
Because otherwise, I mean, 10 lot can
Yeah,
change.
we
We need that. What we need to know is the feedback. Are we on the right path?
Right. Yeah.
So I would suggest that we would change it to 2021, and then whatever percentage then, if it's 3% increase, or, I mean, does 3% work in 5 years? No, he's lukewarm. 4? 3.5, 4, 5?
Davis said 15%. Now, what can we do in 5 years to get closer to Davis?
4% get you?
Continue with the current climate trajectory.
Right.
Yeah.
Plot it out.
I mean,
What is the will of the commission? Do you want to say 9 to 12, or what do you want to do? You want to say a percent during that time
9 to
period?
12, I like 3%.
I mean, if we exceed it, great. We should
Yeah.
strive for amazing
Yeah.
things.
Really should.
But the other stuff in here is way more important than what number we pick. And I
I
like,
know.
like the 9 to 12 was what we had before, so it seems like that'd be a nice, an easy thing to, wouldn't waste a lot of time discussing.
And if we feel an urgency, then yeah, I like the idea of 5 years. I would just like to say too, we can do some kind of like event like they do for the bike racks, is we can just let everybody know today's the day we're counting mode share today. Because I mean, I looked at downloading the bike app and thought about it, and I was like, I just don't want a deal. I was just like, I don't want a deal. So I just, it was more to me like, but if someone was like, on this day, we would like you to track if you're walking or if you're biking, and we could make it into maybe an Urbana event or an Urbana, some sort of day that we know in Urbana, this is the day that we count how we move about the city. I think it could be kind of fun and interesting, and we could maybe get some actual numbers that are more realistic.
Does anybody know with the platinum, is there goals for that?
Yes, there is. We can look at that.
Totally willing to shoot for something that's.
I know the highest level is 20%, but the next level down I think is 12%, but it might be 15. So let's look that up.
I mean, it seems to me if we're
The
shooting for,
chart says
that could be the goal. So
All right. So for a platinum community, the key outcomes are people commuting by bicycle 12%, and for diamond it's 20%. And we had in there that we wanted to achieve platinum, and so 12% would get us there. Yeah, well, you're right. But it doesn't say it says commuting. So does it indicate how they're counting that?
I'm guessing they'd be using census data just because that's available.
That's
and
probably
that's what
true.
the census counts. So
well,
Yeah.
could we change our goal to make it 12% commuting then?
Well, that's really ambitious.
Well,
given
I
our
know,
current
but I
mode
mean,
share.
if we know that the census gathers that data,
Right,
I
but
mean,
I
that,
think our current mode share based on census data is less than 4%.
or less than 4%.
yeah, you'd have to have the jobs.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah.
And the benefit of tying it to the bike survey that the RPC does is that you are getting all trips ostensibly. So I think that's a better number to have than just the commuting number, because
so we have a motion.
I move to make the goal the gain 3 percentage points by 2021.
I second that.
Discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Okay, the motion carries.
can we, just a suggestion, can we keep it in this format and say from 9 to 12%?
Yes.
I think that's more, okay. And I'm going to maybe kill this.
My primary goal is to pass this plan this year, so we do not have to change the year again.
Seriously. Yes.
it's tough to hit Control F and find all the 2016s and change them to 2017s. No, I'm joking.
All right, well, thank you very much, and thank you for all of your work, Kevin.
Do we need to make a motion to endorse the plan, or?
Oh, do you need us to endorse the plan with the changes?
That would be
All
quite
right.
excellent.
All
yes.
right, good. Jeff?
I move that we endorse the 2016 Urbana Bicycle Master Plan and make a recommendation to City Council for approval.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you all.
And up next, we have a presentation on transportation and wayfinding infrastructure in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. And Annie Adams is going to present that. Can you not plug yours? You don't have it on a flash drive?
a flash. I can flash drive it. Yeah. Let's do it like that. While you're setting up, I can find my flash drive and copy those. I mean, I have a flash drive, or I also have it on the.
Much faster.
This is my stuff or your stuff? So what do I do next? It's ready to go. Guess I should copy it. All this. Okay, so you're putting that into here and then this into there. All right, got it. Shouldn't have copied over the entire folder with everything, but whatever. That's true. You're both like, oh no. We have a video. All right, can anyone see anything? I was thinking about it. There you go.
All right.
I'll be out of here in a second. No, I can only see one of those. I'll just hit play.
All right.
Hello. I assume this is working. Okay, so I went to Indianapolis and I wanted to check out what it was like to just arrive in a city and try to find my way around the city, and because we were talking about Urbana's going to be doing wayfinding and different things like that. So when I was in Indianapolis, that was kind of my approach, was what does it feel like to be in this city, and what are lessons that we can learn that we can apply to Urbana. So the first slide is a picture of a public space. In the background, you can see some bike share to the right. I love this. There's public art. I am trained as an artist, so I love this. Hello, where are you from? Because as we all know, Urbana and Champaign have many, many people from all over the world with us. So I thought this was just a nice slide to start with. This is the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. The Cultural Trail, as you can see, has a unique space for cyclists that is off the road. They also put in bus stops, and then what I will also talk about, the pedestrians really like walking on it. Some little tidbits about it is there's no official start or end to the trail, which is I think what we were talking about with Urbana, having a system that people could move through it. There are 10 pieces of public art along the trail, and I'll show you some of the art. The art's actually thematic, so in some ways you might actually want to try to see all 10 pieces. There are 86 bike racks, not nearly enough. There are 25,400 square feet of stormwater planters. So an 11.25 acres of trail pavers, 8,065 cubic yards of topsoil. The only reason I'm bringing up those numbers is I think it really fits with the vision of Urbana, which is instead of putting down pavement, we're actually creating spaces for a more sustainable system. The usage in 2014 for the trail was over 1 million. The primary usage is exercise and recreation, and that really fit my experience with the trail and when I talked to other cyclists about it. And then the second highest use is commuting. And the picture we're looking at here, there's a piece of public art in the background. There's Dancing Girl. And as you can see, the streets are really, really big. And so they had enough room to like actually put down a space for the cyclists, put down a little white space in the middle, put down another space for people who weren't on bikes. And then the other thing I want to point out is they all have beg buttons. So if I'm on my bike and I'm trying to go on this green path here on the right, I actually have to take my little bike and go over to the beg button and hit it and then come back over. It was kind of funny. And I actually don't know if the beg buttons were even needed. Like at a certain point I was like, maybe they've already just been gone with the beg buttons, but I was just more like trying to follow the system they'd set up. As you can see, they have this like wayfinding that says left, right, and most people just ignore it, and that's kind of this is pretty much what I'm going to talk about, and it goes, I was going to bring it up with the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, is signs and how we use them and what's the purpose of them, and they're pretty expensive, and they kind of junk up our space, and if people aren't really going to follow them, then what's our purpose behind doing it? I'm just going to now tell you how this whole thing happened. In 1999, Indianapolis designated 6 cultural districts. They looked at their city and they said, instead of calling them TIF District 1, 2, 3, 4, they came up with funky names for all these different districts. So, they basically did placemaking, and they created this like, this is this kind of space, this is this kind of space, and they sort of designated what they were. I have no idea who Brian Payne is, but Brian Payne proposed the cultural districts be connected by an urban version of a rural rail-to-trail for both pedestrians and bicyclists. So it's kind of like what we're doing with the Kickapoo, but Brian suggested we do it in a urban environment. In 2004, the city gave permission to use the city right-of-way to build the trail, and we'll get into why they had to give the city right-of-way over. And then in May 2013, the 8 miles, and this is just 8 miles, of the trail are completed. The economic impact, it cost $63 million was the project cost. There was $27.5 million private funding, $35.5 million federal transportation funding, and what you'll hear over and over again, no local tax dollars were used to build or maintain the trail. And I was in contact with some folks in regards to the trail, and they said maintenance is very, very expensive. And there's good and bad to having a trail built this way. And I just want to show, in the background is a picture of a new transportation hub that just had gone up. It is shiny, new, tons of buses coming and going from it, and the cultural trail is where the cyclist is, and then there are cars on the road.
And then I just kind of created a slide that said, nothing is free, sorta. They put the trail in and, you know, $63 million, 864.5 million estimated economic impact, 3.56 million annual estimated trail user spending. Since 2008, this is the one that is what I visually saw and was stunned by. Property assessments within one block of the trail increased by 148%, an increase of 1 billion. Property values in some areas increased by 295%. And everywhere around that trail, this is what I saw. I saw pictures of buildings going up, and large buildings. And we, you know, Champaign has something like that one on the right, but buildings going up like this, just this like low rise, high rise, just boom, 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 all around. It was pretty stunning. The other thing is this is their first on-street bike path, and they have created a barrier not only with paint, but they are using cars. This is the very first one, and this was the biggest thing when I got to the city that stunned me, was there were not people biking around. I saw a lot of people walking around. I just didn't see a lot of people biking around. There is not on-street bike facilities. And the cars drive crazy.
For
What?
purposes of clarification,
Yeah.
that would be a protected bike lane. And it looks as if, in addition to the buffer, there is parking between.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's buffered both by parking and the buffer strip.
Right, and these, I'll get to a slide, but all these streets are 6 lanes, one direction. I mean, and they were wondering why no one wanted to live downtown. You know, what happened to the people? But anyway, again, you see this lane, and then again, this is new housing going up. I mean, it was kind of unbelievable. I kind of just kept taking pictures. So yeah, where'd they get the space? 6 lanes. 6 lanes. One way, everywhere. I mean, it was, and again, you see there's no bike lane here. There's nothing. There is a block up the road is where there are cultural trailheads. But this is what the majority of the downtown area looks like, which is you're not going to get bike commuting. And I talked to different people about, you know, the bike commuting. And the cultural trail, it's slow. You're kind of putzing on it. I mean, I saw a few people, you know, racing through traffic, doing things, but in general, I didn't see people using it as an everyday facility. So I thought that was interesting. This is for Craig. This is what they did. They took 6 lanes of traffic and they basically made it 3 lanes of traffic. They have that much space. So they pretty much put in
Big road diet.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty incredible. I mean, and then you can see at the bottom, you'll see the green, the white, the blue. So supposedly people are supposed to be walking up against the sidewalks, but most people want to walk by the pretty pavers. So I asked some folks for some information, and they said that protected vehicles turn across the trail with traffic signals, limiting collisions with turning vehicles. So that was something, protected vehicle turns. That was one thing they did. And again, look at this intersection. I mean, it's just like stunningly huge. Colored Duratherm and raised crosswalks have increased visibility for non-motorized traffic crossing the streets. So this is still the original painting. Now, there are other areas with heavier car traffic where the Duratherm was more off. But again, you can see there are these, and these brownstones, the prices on these quote-unquote brownstones over here on the right have skyrocketed. But again, everyone wants to be on the exterior space. It's just a really fascinating thing. So the advice that I was given was maintain your right-of-way. Spaces shared by cars, bikes, and peds are problematic. Avoid as much as possible. I basically rented a bike. I got on the bike, and then I had to get off the bike because they had a shared valet space. And the valets don't like it, the cyclists don't like it, the pedestrians don't like it. It's just, well, the pedestrians don't really mind. They just kind of mill about. But So that was kind of interesting. And then the pedestrians tend to walk on the bike space, and it's wider, it's better aesthetics, there's different pavers, there's more interesting fun, and people are attracted to people. So they had these little yield to signs everywhere, and again, you see that they're at like people height, and yield to peds. So this was pretty much the infrastructure downtown. And I just wanted to show real fast, this is a picture of the 606 trail up in Chicago. And what they did to try to kind of delineate, this is a very, very thin strip of land that they did all this on. And I was frankly upset when they put in all this greenery, but because I thought, oh, they need all the space. But they did a really nice job of making it so people who bike on it don't bike too fast, and people who walk don't kind of overtake. I hear positive things about the experience, but I just wanted to show how the blue path is technically where you're supposed to run and where you're supposed to walk. So that would be the 606. And then I just have a nice quote: "With so much to offer, the Cultural Trail has become a destination for residents and visitors alike." And I just love this piece of public art. It frankly felt very Urbana to me. Basically, these books are free and available for the taking. And so this was what they did with their 10 public art pieces, was things around this idea. And so that would be my other concept if we are doing wayfinding, or if we are going to be doing something with the Park District, that we set it up so people, when they move through, they find new and interesting and nice things about our community. And then I also want to just bring up public and private seating. I think downtown Urbana does not have a lot of spaces for public to mill about. The parklets in downtown Indianapolis are public spaces, and as you can see, there are commercial spaces where people, if you buy a cup of coffee, you can sit, or a pizza, you can sit. But the parklets on this roundabout, which is massive, and there are no signs, and it works incredible. I have no idea why roundabouts work. They just work. They just blow my mind every time. They're the craziest things I've ever seen. So there's public spaces and art along the Cultural Trail. As you can see, there's bike rental. There's actually a bags or a cornhole facility there. There is a piano you can play if you want. There are light movable seating, and then behind that space, and then there's the Indie Bike Hub, and I have an amazing map that they gave me that I need to share with Charlie, but I don't have it on me, and but it's a really nice map. They did a good job with it. And behind though, that building is a public market, and I just wanted to show this. This is one of the books. It's a piece of art. And you just take, again, when I look at wayfinding, I look at it as a 360 experience. I look at this and I feel like, oh, I can take this. There's no question to me that this is a free book that I can take. And so that's, to me, how I want wayfinding to be. I want it to be very simple, clear, straightforward. They have a city market that you can wander into, and there's a bunch of small vendors doing different things, and you can get delicious espresso or a beer and hang out and talk. And again, this is right off the Cultural Trail. The Cultural Trail also leads to these amazing monuments, war monuments. They're just massive. Those guys were actually trying to fly a drone. That's how big this thing is. It's just this tiny little drone there. They have district signs that talk about, so this is the wholesale district. So like I was saying before, they have their 6 little districts, and they put up these signs, which is one method of doing it. These are pedestrian, this one's for Jeff. These are the pedestrian, car, and wayfinding signs. So Georgia Street to the left, they'll have the Scottish Rite Cathedral. I read that and I think, must see. I don't know what that is, but want to see it. This is, if you're a pedestrian, it's down at pedestrian level, it's pedestrian sized. You look at it and you can see this is to the left, this is to the right. So perhaps useful. This is the bike share wayfinding. This map did not have a "You Are Here" sticker. So that's a very important, for someone like me who doesn't read maps really well, that's sort of important. And then the bike share was and I thought it was very clear. And I had researched it before I went though, but it was like how it works. Here's the pricing. They definitely need more bike racks. I saw bikes locked to like everything. But this is the Pacers bike share. There's a little basket on it. One of the concerns with baskets on bike share is, well, people just put garbage in them. Actually, they didn't. And I think that's about all I have to say about the bike share. Other than, they had like a 7-digit code. It could just be 3 digits. Like, it doesn't have to be, no one's trying to steal your bikes. Pedestrian wayfinding. I thought this was a really nice slide because the one on the right is the old school type of wayfinding. You know, it's just like Charlie Brown's me when I see it. No loitering, no alcohol, no skateboarding. You know, welcome to our city. No, it's kind of like when you're in downtown Urbana and you're like trying to cross the street and it's like, wait, no. Like, oh Lord. So that I look at as like the old school type of like how, you know, welcome to our city, don't do stuff. And then this new school, I really loved this. I thought this was just wonderful. Basically, they said, look around and try to find, they didn't even tell you where it was. They said that we have some, look up at a pair of hawks that are breeding and see if you can find them. And I just thought, oh, so there must be like a whole system of like birding, like a birding system. I just thought it was lovely, but I just thought it was so perfect because it was next to that old type of like, welcome to our city, don't do anything. And then I just kind of wanted to talk about wayfinding that doesn't really work well for me. This is just super confusing, especially when I'm cruising on my bike at gosh knows what speed and it's snowing and there's a lot. I'm trying to look for pedestrians coming in front of me, cars turning right, trying to stay upright in the snow, and then I have this like crazy sign, like
Just went downhill.
I don't even know. I mean, it still confuses me. And then this is like a really traditional style. It's okay. I think it's good. The problem is you got to have something that happens after this sign. You want to have people be able to continue to move. And so what I kind of think would be pretty amazing would just be a piece of wood. And on that piece of wood be like the red trail or the green trail or the blue trail, and you would be able to follow them around. And you could even do those things on, you know, stops. You probably can't do them on stop signs, but you could probably do them on lamp posts or light posts on existing infrastructure. But I like the aesthetic of this, and I like the height of it. I would like that I could be able to see the next one, because on the Indy Trail they said no one gets lost, and I managed to find a way to do that. In Urbana we have things like this already. They're called pollinator pockets. They're pieces of wood, and there's a little metal sign at the top of it. And you can find them. There's a website, and then you can find where the pollinator pockets are, which would be something to obviously try to bring into a whole system if we're trying to create a whole system. This is a real traditional way. You got a metal pole and you put a metal sign at the top of it. This sign in particular, when it came in, has a Nike swoosh on it. It was kind of controversial. And the thing about these signs that never made sense to anybody was what's mile 1, what's mile 2, what's mile 3. People were, depends where you hopped on. So these were kind of effective. These are, again, hiking signs, not super classy. I don't think anyone really wants to see that at the edge of their driveway. But, you know, a piece of metal with a piece of wood at the top. Another way to do wayfinding is, you look at your street furniture. You think about what your street furniture is. So in Indianapolis, they have these teal fire hydrants. All of these at the bottom are bike racks, a very simple plain bike rack. You could, you know, choose a color and be like you're on the red line and you follow the red bike racks. That's Normal, Illinois. The other one is New Orleans. The upper left is a bike rack design I did for Edgewater. I didn't really like the Edgewater in Chicago. I didn't like the edge up the middle of it. That said, I think the blue is very distinctive, and it's a very useful, just a nice circle. You can lock a bike to it, and it looks pleasing to the eye. So that's just another way to think about signs and signage. And this is like my favorite, this is my favorite marked path. It's up in Wisconsin. And I just like the way, I like this sign. I like that it's written on wood. I like the simplicity of it. I like that it's very straightforward. Please, this is what we need from you to do. And then they just have, again, pieces of wood with metal signs on the top of them. The signs are at this height. The signs are small. They're not giant. So they're really designed for your experience when you're biking. That one that says slow, next 2 miles, hills, curves, that is a that is a scary hill. But that's all I have to tell you. That hill, they should just like make that dangerous. And again, this is just the last slide. Is basically if you've been outdoors, you'll see like there's the orange triangle trail. Again, that's just another thing you could do is just put orange triangles on trees or green triangles on trees. So I'm just trying to avoid the. I'm just trying to think of a way that we can all work together. Something that can look aesthetic and not as messy, I think, in a lot of ways, as urban environments can get. There's all sorts of stuff going on, and you're already stimulated. That and you're like, oh well, should I pay attention to this or should I not? I am for branding districts. I think that's very useful to people. But that's what I got. So, does anyone have questions or want to see any pictures or thoughts?
Makes me want to start designing things.
I would be happy next time to do a presentation on wayfinding. There are quite a few considerations, including the fact that you should follow the guidelines in the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which prescribes wayfinding. And so there are a variety of considerations that have to be taken into account. And there is a wide variety of things that you can do. But it depends on what the community wants. We've got, as you know, some wayfinding in downtown Urbana now, and then we also had a Greenways and Trails plan that we did for the county that does provide guidance as well. So we've got some things in place already that we'll be trying to coordinate with, and so that adds another layer of complexity to our decision making. But I would be happy to do that next time and sort of cover some of the basics in terms of the best practices in wayfinding systems, and show you some of the stuff we've been doing in Peoria. I think you're right. The places I have talked to say that designating space that's separated for bicyclists and pedestrians doesn't work. Everybody uses whatever space they want. They do not separate themselves very well. We are hoping with the MCOR project on campus that the landscaping barriers that we have put into place will help with that, but it's always an issue when you've got a lot of pedestrians and bicyclists.
I was gonna say the tricky thing here, like the solution for them, like you look at this, I mean, obviously if a cyclist really wants to commute and not interfere with people, you would want to go on the sidewalk portion. But as a cyclist, you don't go on the sidewalk portion because you have this really nice infrastructure built for you in this other area. And so it's just what people tend to do. They tend to want to be where people are. They tend to want to be in the more interesting places. And even like in that downtown area, that's what I found so fascinating. I mean, I even walked in the bike lane. I just was like, this is one guy in a suit, guy in suit photo. But even here, because I was like, well, no, I want to be out here where the stuff's happening and where things are. So that to me was interesting. And you cannot put the bikes, on the sidewalk. That just is not smart.
Yeah.
So, the only thing I can think of is to make it uglier. But that's all I got.
Are there any other questions?
Annie, you said that there was no local dollars that were spent on the cultural trail, and then you said the maintenance also wasn't local. Who does the maintenance, and how do they fund it?
Yeah, they're doing private funding.
Friends
So
of
they
the
do
Trail.
fundraising and grants and federal, yeah,
So corporate sponsors, or?
yeah, all sorts of things.
I think they do fundraising, they have corporate sponsors, they've got a really big Friends of the Trail
Yeah,
organization.
yeah. It's challenging, is what I was told. They said it's a good, bad thing. They're like, we feel like we have control and it can be kept to a certain level, but it's very challenging and the other thing was it's very, very expensive. So that's the hard part. But it was done with federal dollars and, other money. It just wasn't local tax dollars, quote unquote, because federal dollars are local, I guess.
Any, so far, how many miles do they have in
8.
place? 8?
It's
And they-
unbelievable. I mean, what's to me is unbelievable is the economic impact and just the change in thought for just 8 miles.
And they spent $63 million
Yeah.
for 8 miles?
Well, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that included the art.
And there are a ton of signs. I didn't even show you all the signs. I mean,
Yeah, there is a lot of signage, I think you're right.
It was just nuts. I mean, it was like there were metal things that said Indy Trail. There were signs on the ground that said Indianapolis Trail. It was just like this endless. I know. I was like, and no one's reading them, and no one cares. People just want to try to get to the next destination or try to find the next bike. Really, that was my thing. I was like, I got to dock this thing. I got to figure out, I had my iPhone going off. I'm like, I don't know where the next dock is. So, yeah. And I honestly didn't make it through the whole thing because I was stopping and taking pictures and looking at stuff. But that was, yeah, because I thought 8 miles, I'll be done, But no, I got distracted. There was cool things to look at, actually. It was kind of fun. I was impressed.
Well, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Yes.
So the bike plan's on 8.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to share with you where we are with the volunteer snow removal program. And some of this is information some of you have seen before, but I did go back and review a little bit of what I had done previously, because we have a lot of new people here since February when I last talked about this program. So we've been talking for some time now about having a snow removal encouragement program, and we are moving forward with that. So it's a little bit of background. In December of 2014, I made a presentation on voluntary snow removal programs. I looked at programs around the country, and I presented what I found. Then in July of 2015, I presented again and did a update, and there was a suggestion by BPAC that we set up a working group and come back to the commission with some additional ideas and information. So then in February, the working group met and they proposed a pilot program, and then I came back and did a presentation to the commission about that. Since February, the MTD staff and the Urbana School District staff have met and worked to create a program. And we're about ready to launch that program and hope to have the website publicly launched in December. So why is this important? Well, we've got over 25% of our residents walk, bike, or use the bus for trips, and when it snows any significant amount, people cannot get where they need to go, and that is a very big percentage of the traffic going to and from work every day utilizing those modes. And we really do not want to have a 25% increase in people driving on those days because the roads are already in bad shape. So what we end up seeing things like this, pedestrians in the streets, climbing over mountains of snow, and this is in the commercial district where they're required to remove the snow. They removed it on the sidewalk, and then they snow plowed it and covered up the ramp. And people, as you see here, the little pathway that they cleared, there's no way someone in a wheelchair could get through there. And this is a major corridor for people with disabilities. There are several living facilities in the area. This is a bus stop. This is across from Thomas Paine Elementary, and you can see nothing has been removed here. Everybody's trying to tramp through the piles of snow. And then, mounding, there's really no excuse for commercial establishments to clear their parking lots and pile it onto the sidewalks, especially in areas near schools. This is not within one of our required snow removal zones. However, I believe that code enforcement tell me that it is not legal to pile your snow onto the public right-of-way and block the passage. So we could address that. So what is a volunteer snow removal program? And we're talking about calling it snow angels, the people who volunteer to clear snow from sidewalks, driveways, entrances, and paths, and sometimes even to someone's front door if there's a person who's signed up that has particular mobility issues and is not able to clear sidewalks. Even in communities with snow removal ordinances, which Urbana should have, we have it for designated districts, but not for the community overall. But even when you have that requirement, you still need the encouragement programs. You cannot succeed only with enforcement. These were the ideas that we proposed, the working group proposed, that we create this volunteer placement system, and we use maps of priority locations, and I'll show you those maps. Use interns and staff to help create the website, the maps, the sign-up forms, and focus on those priority sidewalks. Then do outreach to encourage a variety of organizations to participate. Encourage landlords to emphasize the importance of clearing sidewalks to tenants and encourage them to provide them with shovels. Replicate an awards program. The city of Chicago has a good one, and then eventually look at having something like the Urbana Litter-Free Street program, and perhaps link those two programs so that the groups that sign up to do litter removal see if they're interested in helping with snow removal. We have the sidewalk inventory that Kuwats did, so that gave us information on priority locations, including schools, transit, and then a combined priority score, which I will show you on the map. The two areas that are high priority are the Lincoln Square area and the South Philo Road Business District, and those two areas are covered by our current our required snow removal ordinance. Also, there are areas in which we know there's a high percentage of people who are transit dependent. So the school district talked about perhaps having the Interact Club, which is a high school student group associated with the Rotary, work on this, and perhaps maybe get Rotaries to help sponsor by funding shovels and get juniors and seniors in high school to shovel specific locations. And there was a program in Gary, Indiana that I had talked about in previous presentations that was a good model. So this is one of those maps I was talking about. This shows people with disabilities, and the lighter colors and the red are the hot spots. And you can see right here, that's the Philo Road around Florida, I believe. And this is University up here. This is over off of Washington. Then they put transit connectivity on top of that, so you can see where all of this has all of the bus stops plotted on it. So, and then it also tells you the size of the dots, tells you the number of trips, so you can see higher trip destination locations. Those are schools and public facilities, and it tells you what kind they are. And then it put all of those together and created what we call a heat map. And so that shows you the specific locations that we have, populations that are very dependent on walking, biking, and transit. So these are high priority areas. We then took that and we overlaid it with our Safe Routes to School routes, which CUWATS does update every 2 years. They make sure that the designated routes are safe, have sidewalks, crosswalks, etc. They don't cross dangerous locations. And so those were all put together, and this is the geographical area that we looked at for our snow removal. The University District, that's not part of what we're doing, and plus the university does a really fine job of removing snow in their area. So we ended up with 7 zones, and we have 169 sections. My intern for Safe Routes to School, along with one of the planners at the transit district, worked on these maps, and the schools are labeled, and so you can see that it's got them numbered by so 1A, so zone and number. It's got the street and the block, and so you could zoom in here and say, okay, the block I want to do is B1, and then the next thing that you do is go to the volunteer sign-up form, which is online, and you also, before you complete the form, will have to agree to the liability waiver form. And there you fill out your email, your age, your name, phone number, what area you want to do, whether you're a group that wants to do an area, and the days and times, because if students from the University of Illinois volunteer, they're not likely to be here over winter break, for example. So it would be helpful to know that during that time period, that would not be cleared. We also have an opportunity for people to say they need assistance with transportation, and we'll be evaluating that to see whether or not we can help them with that. They can request equipment assistance. At this time, we do not have any money, so that's sort of a wish list of if they tell us they need equipment, we don't have the ability to purchase it at this point. So that's something we're working on. We also have a text reminder sign-up form because the city issues a notification that puts the snow removal ordinance into effect. And when they do that, we set it up to automatically send a text reminder to our volunteers that the ordinance is now in effect. And so, this is a good time for you to go out and remove the snow. We also have a media permission form so that if we go out and take pictures of people, we can use them without having to worry about that. So that is what we have set up online.
Why is age on there?
Because if they're under 18, they have to have a parent to sign a form giving them permission to participate. I think it's 18. It might be 16. So we cannot sign up minors to do this without parental permission.
You could just have a check off like I am over the age of 18 or no?
Yeah, and I have to go back and look and see exactly how it's set up in there. I assume if someone doesn't want to tell us their age, that's not a problem. And I actually don't remember whether they ask you to fill in your age or if they just have it by I'm over the age of 18 or 16. I filled it out, but it's been a little while since I did that. We already have the Safe Routes to School snow removal encouragement program in place. We can provide schools with materials that they can reproduce and distribute, flyers, postcards. We have some yard signs. We try and get those back because they're expensive and we don't have any money to reproduce them again. And the schools then can take the signs and put them in the yards of neighbors in the area that are doing a good job of clearing their sidewalks, and they look like this. And it's designed to say thank you for shoveling your walk, and this is the neighborly thing to do. They are a hot pink and I guess purple color, as you can see, and they really do stand out well in the snow. So
I've still got mine, so I can put it up myself.
Oh, good. So we have those. We also have bus boards, and that's what the bus board looks like. And we have some radio ads that we did in the past. Since we don't have any money for Safe Routes to School, MTD is going to run the bus boards on their buses for free, and they're going to run the snow removal encouragement ads for 2 weeks starting, I believe, on November 28th. I got an email from the marketing manager about that. So that is what we have planned, and we certainly would want to ask for your help in getting the word out about volunteering for this. We're going to launch it internally at MTD and ask our staff to sign up first, sort of as a pilot to see what kinks and corrections we need to make before we launch it out to the larger public, and see how it goes in terms of the amount of time for management. We also have a grant that we are going to submit, application for a grant. We're submitting on Friday to America Walks. They have what they call micro-urban grants under a title called Everybody Walks, and they're very small. It's $1,500, but we have been working the last couple of weeks to put together an application in which we would purchase some snow shovels, hats, gloves, safety vests, particularly if we have kids from the high school going out, we can give them safety vests, and some additional media outreach. Social media in particular is cost-effective way to move information out. And so if we get that, we would. They told us we would know in December. That would still give us time to implement during the time of year when we're more likely to have snow starting in January. We may not have a lot of snow. Last 2 winters we haven't had a lot of snow, and that's dandy. People sign up and get to feel good and don't have to shovel very much. I'm sure they won't be unhappy. And so that's where we are with the program, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
This doesn't necessarily relate to the program, but Urbana doesn't have a mandatory snow shoveling requirement for commercial districts on sidewalks?
Yes, they do for those designated districts, the Philo Road Commercial District, and then around Lincoln Square, and then the University District. So yes, and does it cover between Lincoln Square over to, it just covers the Lincoln Square and then it hops over to the University District? Yeah.
Yeah, and those are mandatory once the Public Works Director issues a notice. I think it's 48 hours to clear.
Mm-hmm.
Where they, basically, we have a have a snow removal service that we would then remove it and then charge those commercial or properties.
The neighborhood between here and campus, the Woonut neighborhood, they have developed a culture of snow removal there, which is really what we want to emulate in other neighborhoods, where neighbors clear for other neighbors, and most of the sidewalks do have snow removed, and that is what we'd really like to see happen in the other neighborhoods, and particularly on high transit usage routes and around schools, so that in the past, the public school district has literally had to cancel school if there was very much snow because the children could not get to school without walking in the street, and they could not put their safety at risk to get to school. And so they canceled 1 or 2 days the year where I show you all these pictures of the snow. They had to cancel school because the kids simply could not get to school. And that's how we ended up with our snow removal ordinances as well. The university had to shut down for the first time in its history for 2 days because the students could not get out of their apartment buildings even to get to campus when they were within walking distance. And so the chancellor went to both city councils and asked them to pass this requirement. And I think what's interesting, it would be interesting to do a survey, but I suspect that the primary people not clearing sidewalks are younger people that rent property. I see people say, well, elderly people can't clear their sidewalks. Well, I see the elderly people clearing their sidewalks. Theirs, in fact, are probably the first ones cleared. And so I don't think it's an issue of not being able to clear snow in most cases. I think it's a matter of not realizing that you should, not thinking about the obstacle it's presenting for other members of the community, and just generally being a temporary living situation and not thinking about the impact it has on other folks. And yet somehow those rental properties get their lawns mowed. So I think there are options for solving this, and working with landlords is an option that we could pursue a little more, encouraging them to have some system for snow removal for rental property, because I forgot how high our rental rate is, but the majority of dwelling units in this community are rental. So that I think therein lies a big part of our problem.
As a person who rented, I would shovel just because I grew up in Wisconsin and that's what you do. I mean, you just shovel, especially if you have a shovel. But if a landlord did not provide a shovel, B, it was their job. It was known. It is the landlord's job, and I am paying you rent, and that is what you do. And so I assume in this city that's something that we should maybe make clear, if it's the resident's responsibility or if it's the landlord's responsibility. And then if it is the landlord wants the residents, they must provide a shovel for the residents to shovel, because residents are not going to go out and buy a shovel and then I could be wrong on this, but I know as a person who rented almost her entire life, I would not go out and buy a shovel for my landlord. But I'd buy it for my car and keep it in the back of my car, but and I lived in Minnesota too, so I know the snow.
Are any other questions or comments? Yes, Craig.
So, great presentation. So what's your long-term vision? You've got this moving. It looks like you've done a lot of background work to get to this point, but what's your long-term vision for this program?
Well, the long-term vision is to have a culture in the community of clearing sidewalks, and to have the volunteer snow removal program be one that provides assistance for removing snow particularly in locations that are necessary for people to get where they need to go. And also, there are some people who can't remove snow that need assistance, and we didn't set this program up with that specifically in mind in terms of someone requesting snow removal, but that is something that we could add in. The school district is trying to figure out how to address the problem of the ramps, and this is something that the city and the schools and other people struggle with, that people go out and clear their sidewalks, but if the street isn't cleared until afterwards, the snowplow comes by and the snow gets piled onto the ramp, and then the people still can't get into the crosswalk. So who clears the ramps, and when does that happen, and how does it happen? And that's another piece of this that we have not yet quite figured out. And I don't know whether the city does any clearing of ramps that get blocked, if you only do that like in downtown, or...
And only in those designated areas, yeah.
Okay.
So there is no law that says if you own property, the sidewalk has to be cleared and the ramp has to be cleared?
Only in the designated districts.
That strikes me as...
It struck me that way when I moved here 14 years ago as well, from Oklahoma, where we had a
Yeah.
snow removal ordinance, even though we didn't need it
Because that's, I
very
mean,
often.
I was just gonna say, because that's that's why I didn't clear snow in Minneapolis. I mean, when you live in Minneapolis and 2 feet of snow falls, it's as a renter, you laugh and go, I'm renting. You know, so you might go shovel. You'll shovel. It snows. It's used to snow quite a bit up there. So you would shovel every now and then, but realistically, you know, depending on the property and depending on the deal you had with your landlord. But that strikes me as ground zero. Really, is making it part of the culture that. And
There
I,
should,
you know, I
our
don't even have a
recommendation
sidewalk
is
now.
that there should be a snow removal ordinance, and that there also be, you know, the encouragement campaign. And so we will be presenting Snow Angel of the Month awards at the MTD board meetings and at the school board meetings. I wondered if the Urbana City Council or BPAC would like to do that as well. That is an option for, you know, giving rewards to people for being a good volunteer. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't necessarily even have to be a volunteer. It could be somebody through our program. It could be somebody who just does go out and clear snow as a matter of being a good neighbor. And so they are recognized and given an award for being a good citizen and clearing sidewalks. That encouragement and public recognition, developing that understanding that this is something we all do for each other, is a big part of these kinds of programs. So, you know, I would like to see this kind of a program be one that is ongoing and it becomes part of you know, both of the cities. As we move forward, Champaign and Urbana are the only downstate communities that don't have a blanket snow removal ordinance. Trying to get one passed was difficult, and people just don't like change. So that's part of, there's always resistance to change.
Can BPAC make a recommendation to City Council to change the snow removal?
Because it seems to me like we could talk about it as it's a pedestrian thoroughfare. I mean, that's the way I was.
Yeah.
I was brought up in a very walkable city, and and even in Chicago, that was it. You have to clear. I mean that it was just known. Like, you have to clear your sidewalk. You don't clear your sidewalk, that is illegal because you are blocking passage. So. And I totally agree with the concept of being neighborly but then it becomes neighborly when you know it's the law. If it's not the law, then you're just being a person out there who's doing stuff. But if it's the law, you're like, well, you know, they have a lazy landlord. I'm just going to shovel this up for them and we'll take care. Like, I don't want them getting in trouble. And like when it's the law, it like changes you as the Good Samaritan really are truly the Good Samaritan. You're not just doing it to do it. You know, but that would, yeah.
Well, it sounds to me like that leads right into our next agenda item, which is future topics.
Oh,
So, you know, the answer on that is BPAC is an advisory commission. If BPAC wanted to make a recommendation that they send a representative to City Council, and the City Council, they discuss that with City Council, I can tell you that within city staff, we have discussed it with the mayor. It falls under the Neighborhood Safety Task Force. The mayor has said that she is not willing to pursue it, the expansion of the current snow removal policy. So just keep that in mind.
sure.
I just think it's funny because it's snow. I mean, as a person who grew up, you know, spent much of her life in very wintry weather, like down here, we're talking like twice, maybe. Like, it's not, I mean, I know you're going to get the weird winter every now and then, but to me, it's just kind of funny because it's like, I actually look forward to like when it's just a little bit here and there, it's actually really fun. So it's kind of funny to me to, you know, to know that I didn't even, I mean, it's just funny to me to know the whole thing.
Would we be able to would someone be willing to volunteer to bring this up?
Well, I
As city
think we
council
could, ask that this be a future topic where we could discuss it and pass a motion.
Okay.
I think that would be the proper approach to take. Which brings us to announcements. Do we have any?
Yeah, I've got one. Campus just got done wrapping up a 360 count bike donation process of abandoned bicycles on campus to Tanzania, to mostly for a primary school and secondary school in Tanzania for women, young women, and also for a certain amount of those bicycles to be donated to the public health organization there for workers who are doing work spreading HIV prevention education and also testing for HIV. So that's one cool announcement from the university side. It also took about 28 volunteers, 10 hours, a lot of pizza, and and the nonprofit Working Bikes from Chicago to come down and rent a shipping container. So it was a successful event.
Any other announcements? Yes.
So the bids were opened by the Department of Transportation for the MCOR project on November 4th. The project in Urbana came in 10% over the engineer's estimate. The project in Champaign was nearly 15% over. So at this point, we're kind of in a stall mode, meaning that the agencies have to meet and decide where to go from there. Typically, if it's above 10%, it's not awardable, which means that it has to be rescoped and rebid. So at this point, we'll find out a little bit more here this week, but the bids that were received were on the high side.
Yeah, and the next time the bids can go out, they have to go out by the state schedule. It'll be in March.
Right.
And is the money going to still be available in March for the MCOR project, if you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, the
All right.
money, the funds are obligated, meaning the federal Tiger Grant funds are obligated for the project, and the local funds, the match is there. It's just that basically there's an estimate, and after 2 rounds of bidding, it's the market's telling us that what we've asking for is too much.
And would you cut 10 to 15? I mean, is that one of the things you do? Go back and try to cut 10 to 15% of the budget?
It very well could be. The latest round was relax the schedule or relax some of the penalties, provide on-street staging of construction materials, equipment, things like that, and clearly it didn't quite pan out. So really, I can't say much more than just that, yeah, we have to go back and try to figure out how to make it work. But I will say that, as far as I understand, the agencies are still interested in pursuing this. It's just how do you get it done? So.
Any other announcements? Okay, future topics. So we heard that there's a desire to talk about snow removal ordinance and wayfinding. Was there anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to bring to BPAC, if you guys would have me, Lincoln, Iowa, the intersection has a bike path that's kind of near there, kind of close, kind of mid-block though, on the other side, the Urbana block. So it has a bike path from campus that kind of ends very randomly at Lincoln. And so I'd like to show you guys some of the plans that we have going forward for changing that, reworking that bike path, that leg of the bike path that's currently in terrible condition, and something that we're going to be working on and replacing as it is. We'd just like to show you guys what we're planning on doing to bring it cyclist traffic and pedestrian traffic to the intersection formally on this bike path. This bike path goes all the way to the quad. It's very important.
The date of our meeting for next month would be December. It's a little bit earlier, so we were not completely into holiday madness. Look here. It would be
Not the 13th, not the 13th.
Is it the 20th?
the 20th, yes. That is getting kind of late into the season. Well, we could give it a shot and see if we can achieve a quorum, and if we can't, we'll postpone till January.
I have one other bike future topic
Oh.
too.
Okay.
On campus, with correlating with MTD, we're going to be starting a bike share. It's looking very positive for that. And after December 20th will be after the latest MTD board meeting. I would like to present to BPAC what this bike share program is and some of the details, which we learn something new every day on.
I actually just found out that there is bike share in Champaign already.
Yeah,
There's that Zagster or something.
absolutely.
I guess a private.
And Urbana too. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
That's interesting.
This is a Zagster program. Oh, is it? Mm-hmm.
Zip bike.
Zip bike.
Yeah,
Brought
it's
to us by
Zipcar,
Zipcar.
is sponsoring it, and they are launching it particularly on colleges' campuses where they have Zipcar, and we were one of the ones they wanted to do it with. It's sort of a pilot,
Yeah.
and
First 20.
we were the second campus to have a Zipcar, so they were interested in doing it here, and we've been talking about this for at least 8 years. And so it might actually happen, which is very exciting.
I didn't show pictures of it, but downtown Indianapolis also has tiny little cars that you can, I think, check out and rent right off the street, and I think they are electric. It was kind of fascinating. You go into a little bubble and you rent the car. It was kind of, I was like, whoa. But anyway.
They probably have federal funds for mitigating air quality
Rank
issues.
funds.
We don't qualify because our air is too good. Ever since I moved here, when I'd ask people how they funded great programs we wanted to do here, they'd say, "Oh, we're using the blah 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 funds," and I say, "Oh, great, we don't get any of that money."
I like our air, Cynthia.
Right,
It's
but that
nice.
means that's how those things happen in other places, and we don't have the capability to fund them here. So that's been a frustration.
But you're getting Zipcar, it sounds like.
We got Zipcar because we provided a revenue guarantee initially, but the program has been self-sustaining. It only took us 18 months for it to become self-sustaining. I think it's one of the more successful programs.
It's the third most frequented car share in the country. It has a solid 5% growth of active customers, current actives, each year.
We're not at the top of the list of crashes anymore, are we?
I'll have to look into that.
At one point, we had gained that rather unimpressive distinction.
There's also a very cool and unique scholarship fund too that's associated with our Zipcar. So
Cool.
Ford will pay for this for students to kind of talk about or do a project on their experiences using Zipcar, tying into the environment and sustainability. And our students have been awarded that scholarship before too. So been good partners with us.
Yeah, exciting. So the Zip bike stations will probably be located in locations where there are Zip cars. It's getting late. So they see this as an extension of their programming for Zipcar. And we, of course, mostly have those in locations also with good transit access. So it would be a way that we expand mobility in the community for people. That's very exciting. Mhm.
I have one quick announcement I thought of. December 4th, I believe that's Sunday, there's the annual meeting of the Champaign County Bikes, the advocacy group that produces the CU bike map, is occurring, and all are welcome. Champaign County Bikes.
Anybody have anything else? Well, in closing, I will say last night we had our second lunar cycle ride, and it was a beautiful full moon. We reduced the route from 10 miles to 5, and Annie and I did not expect, we actually thought we'd have 4 people there, and so we were rather surprised when we had like 15 people show up. And we learned several things. One, we do need to have someone there to check bikes before we go. We had someone who ended up with so little air in their tire they couldn't continue. And that people like the 5-mile route. So we went up around through, we got a permit from the Park District, went through Crystal Lake Park, and then we use our bicycle infrastructure, and we went up Goodwin and came back down Broadway, and then a bunch of people also hung around downtown Urbana afterwards and had something to eat and drink, and it was a lot of fun. So we're talking about doing one in December. We haven't announced the date yet, but it's a Facebook organized ride, and we'll probably organize it with the idea that if it's snowing, raining, or below 32 degrees, we will not have the ride. But last night also surprised us, it was really very nice. So it wasn't that, it really was not very cold. So those are the kind of rides that apparently there's interest in the community, and that maybe we need to look at trying to offer more of.
And real fast, with Imbibe Urbana is the organization that that kind of came up with the concept, and Cynthia is coming up with the routes and leading the rides, and what the focus of what we agreed to do with these was we wanted them to be slow rides, we wanted them to be chatty, we wanted them to be in the city. We didn't want to be out in the cornfields. And so it was Cynthia and I seriously thought there'd be like 4 of us yesterday, and it was a bunch of people who had never done group rides. We
had a couple come from Danville.
Yeah, people come from a lot of people from Champaign. It was really, and they didn't even know it was Imbibe Urbana. They just said, I saw it on Facebook. It came up in my feed. I just wanted to do it. It was a really interesting experience for the two of us. Yeah, we were, and about 10 miles an hour is what people would have been.
We averaged
10 to
7.
Yeah, well, we had issues. Well, we had there was one cyclist. It was a no drop ride, and there was a cyclist. It was, yeah, so we had to figure that out. And she's wonderful, so we're hoping she comes back. But it was a very, it was very interesting to us to have these, and I said, like I said to the cyclist, I said, riding in pitch black, riding in November, showing up at a ride. I'm like, this is a lot. This is really impressive that you're here. Like, and it's your first group ride in pitch black. Like, I mean, because I have a super crazy light, but it was because I saw someone like weaving off the road, and I was like, oh, and I like, turned on my light. I was like, and the bright.
Yeah, I brought some of our silicone bike lights, and there
Yeah.
were some people who we put lights on for them.
Yeah, so Cynthia and I agreed that we're gonna meet up and talk about it. And then I even mentioned to my partner Imbibe, I said, I don't even know if this is really an Imbibe Urbana event. I mean, we want people to come downtown and to, afterwards or go out to Riggs or what, we want to, it is about that. And that's what a lot of people said. I didn't even know this was here. Flying Machine is here. What is this? And there was, and the bike parking there was no bike parking available. It was all full. All
That's
in front of
true.
Flying Machine
Yeah.
Shipyard. There was no bike parking available. All the racks were.
They were all full.
They were like 40.
People chained their bikes up to
Yeah.
trees and stuff.
So that's something to think about. But anyway, we're rambling. I'm rambling. But it was really.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was really great. It was
Okay.
great.
Well, we'll wrap it up. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All right.
I second your adjournment.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much for coming, and have a great Thanksgiving.